All right, welcome everybody. We are here with another rendition of the Wodify Insider Podcast, and pleased to be joined today by the team at NCFIT. We're pleased to be joined by Jason Khalipa, founder of NCFIT, and Matt DellaValle, the Chief Fitness Officer of NCFIT. So it's early for you guys. Thanks for getting up with us today, and I know you're probably working your way through the first cup of coffee, but thank you guys for your time. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Cory.
Yeah, good to be here.
Awesome, guys. So I think the overarching theme of today's conversation is going to be coaching, specifically coaching development, and we're going to kind of touch upon a few questions we had about Coach Like a Pro, which you guys have a brand new cohort of that program starting up, I believe, next week.
Yep.
So we'll dive into all of that. But before we do, just so you guys know, I work in a sales capacity here at Wodify primarily. So I deal with a lot of customers who are interested in NCFIT, or they're coming to us from a new platform and interested in utilizing NCFIT. And it's super notable that coaching development is already your ethos. Like, people are coming to us with a pre-existing knowledge of, like, this is the thing I value the most about NCFIT, is that sort of marriage of coaching development with the programming process. And just had some questions about sort of how that came to be. So I'm going to kick it over to Reganne, because she's actually utilized NCFIT programming as a coach. So she's kind of the perfect person to dive into that.
Yeah, so my background with NCFIT is I was working at a CrossFit gym in North Carolina during the pandemic. And right when we reopened, we had been doing all of our own programming to kind of fit the online model, trying to just keep people moving. So when we reopened the doors, we actually relaunched classes with NCFIT programming. So we wanted to just kind of level up our game with professionalism in class. We wanted everybody on the same page, and we wanted to make sure that we had all of the tools, no matter how experienced the coach was leading class, to ensure we were offering a really consistent experience. So we launched with NCFIT. You guys were doing those really awesome videos. You had your app. And then the added benefit was we were also on Wodify. So we started getting that pushed right into Wodify. So we weren't having to do our own programming, entry, and all of that. And it was a huge help. I was like 2 years into coaching. We had coaches that were like 3 months into coaching. And suddenly we had timelines and stimulus and all of the notes to make sure we were aligned on what was happening in class. And so we wanted to start things off by just getting a little bit of a background onto why you guys launched your programming with a coach development led methodology versus just launching.
Yeah, Jay, do you want to kick off and talk about the need that we had?
Yeah, by the way, Reganne, thanks for you mentioned that you came to our 5 a.m. class at Coach Like a Pro. So thank you for coming to that. I like the Two Brain Summit, and I like the opportunity to get in front of people and coach, because I believe the art of coaching is something that's important to talk about. I also think it's important to show, right? And that was an example of us walking the walk and talking the talk, right? Running classes to show coaches, hey, this level of engagement we're looking for, this is the timeline, this is the way we do things. And, for many years at NCFIT, we opened up multiple locations across the globe. We started off with 1, we got 2, 5, 7, 10, and then all of a sudden we opened about 30 across the globe. And what we realized was that consistency across locations was really important to us. We wanted a similar experience, like similar as if you went into, one Starbucks to another, you might have a better or worse barista, but at least you're going to have a similar experience. And we at NCFIT wanted to be able to provide that to our coaches. We wanted to provide a daily tool that could help develop them, so that we could also offer classes that were more consistent. Instead of just providing them a workout, we wanted to provide them with a daily resource they could educate themselves on, so that it was constant reiteration of the art of coaching, and not just like, oh, a seminar once a year or seminar every now and then. It was a daily practice. And so we rolled out the NCFIT Collective to our own gyms first, right? So we put out the session plan. We started evaluating, hey, how is this working for our coaches? Is it developing them? Is it giving them the tools they need to perform the best class in the world on the floor? And then ultimately what we realized was, wow, if this works so well for us and we invested so much time, effort, and energy into it, why don't we offer this to gym owners and coaches? And, I'll let MDV speak more on this, but I would just say, if you're a gym owner out there and you're not probably outsourcing your program, I think there's a better use of your time. I do. I think that there's organizations like us. I mean, obviously, I believe we're the best in class because we test all our workouts. We have a phenomenal team, et cetera. But nonetheless, I think if you're an individual owner, it's just very hard to give your team a daily resource, because it's so much bandwidth to create that. So instead he could outsource it and provide this to your coaches, and it could free up your time to go do other things to benefit the business. So anyways, that's a long-winded way of talking about how it kind of came to be. And now I think it's best in class for daily development instead of just looking at it on like a annual development perspective.
Yeah, it really was my first interaction with coach development outside of taking my L1. And I actually started coaching under my mom. And so my feedback experience was basically her being like, hey, talk louder, or like, do this, like yelling at me across the room. So being able to get like, you know, from a non-biased third party, really tangible coach development, it was huge. And it made a big difference in how we were running classes. And I could be like, hey, I can notice you didn't watch the video that NCFIT put out for the workout today because, you know, you're not mentioning, you know, the right stimulus when you're briefing class, or movement standards weren't consistent with what like the expectations were. So it was huge for us.
That's awesome. That's awesome. You know, what Jay highlighted it already, but you know, we needed this tool. Our coaches needed a tool like this. It didn't exist. And over the years, we've refined it, and we've kept that core coaching development aspect to our programming ever since we launched to this day. And I do think it's still the main thing that separates us from the many other people out there who are selling programming right now. Not to say that they're doing anything poorly or badly, but we certainly put a priority on coaching development even to this day. The way that we do so is that every single workout that we offer through our program is backed by a fully detailed, fully tested class plan. It is written and tested by an actual coach who's stepping on the floor, who's coaching classes, just like the owners and the coaches who are out there, is producing this document. So it's a peer-produced document that your coaches now get to review from somebody else who's in the space, who's coached hundreds and hundreds of hours. And like Reganne, you said, we have timeline at the whiteboard notes. We have stimulus. We've got a warm-up. We've got teaching notes. We've got adjustments. We've got all the other things that you could want in a fully detailed class plan. And we don't necessarily want coaches to follow it blindly. What we want coaches to do is we want coaches to read it and then adjust their presentation based on their level of experience. So if somebody is very, very experienced, maybe they're reading this document and they're understanding why we put things down, and they're questioning it, and maybe going out there and giving a class where they consider some of the things that we've offered, but maybe not following the lesson plan exactly. But if you've got newer coaches on your team, like you were highlighting, this is a fantastic place to start off newer coaches with an understanding of how to get through a 60-minute class without drowning. And we give all of those details in there. It's a really, really dynamic document. And I do think it applies to everybody across the spectrum, no matter if you're very, very new or you've been coaching for a long time.
Love it. And we were reading through the workbook you guys sent over, which thank you for doing. That was super interesting to read through, and kind of like really brought the program alive, like understanding how it does operate, seeing those metrics that you guys keep track of throughout the program. And I noticed the 3 P's you guys had of coaching. There were positivity, presence, and preparation, right? And I imagine those were central to your curriculum, probably because you have done those wrong at various times in your career. You know, so if I asked you guys to sort of harken back to an early career moment where maybe you weren't aware of that yet, and you did something really incorrectly that led to that realization of like, man, this is something that is central to being a good coach. Whether any of the P's, it works fine, but just curious, because you guys are now in a position to be the wise coaches letting the early guys know, but you were the early guys at one point. So something stand out from those days?
Well, Cory, think about it like this. Like, you can't have your presence and attitude unless you have your preparation. So just think about it like that. If you're not prepared for a class, then you can't allow your personality to shine because you're so worried about what you're actually performing. And so that's why preparation is so important, is because it allows you to do the other things. And I think from a positivity perspective, you know, yesterday I was teaching a new member class at our gym. It was a member bring a member class, right? So it was for a lot of these people, they were members of our gym for a long time. They were bringing a family member to come and experience our gym. And you could just tell in the room, there was a lot of like anxious energy because these people were probably like convinced, hey, come on in for a Sunday class before brunch. And what I told them from the very beginning is that I had 3 goals for that class, right? I want to, number 1, above all else, make sure you have fun. I want you to have a very positive experience here, because early on in my coaching career, I probably put too much emphasis on the technical skills and not enough on just people having a great time. And if they don't have a great time, if you're not positive, if you're not prepared, you can't perform a class that's going to allow them to feel like, wow, I really want to come back for more of this, right? Of course, you need to have technical capacity. I'm not saying you shouldn't, but what becomes number one is, are people enjoying their experience? Are they learning something? And of course, are they getting a good workout? But I think that number one is so important, and being prepared allows you to deliver that best experience. These people yesterday, for example, I just set the tone early. Like, dude, look, I want you to have the best hour, because I know that if I could give you a good experience, if you could have fun, that I'm going to get you to come back. But if you just come here and we kick your butt and we teach you something, you may never come back again. And, I think our members are one bad experience away from never coming back into the gym again. And every time I coach a class, I think about that, whether it's the veteran that's been there for 10 years or the new person that's been there for a month. They're one bad experience away from saying, hey, this isn't for me and I'm never coming back.
One of the things that I want to clarify here is that, we have the NCFIT programming and coaching development, the collective. That's our daily development that I think is extremely integral for gym owners to consider for their gyms. I think of all the providers out there, we do a really, really good job of infusing development into a really great CrossFit program for group style classes. Do we give you the most volume, the most intensity, the most games programming? No, that's not our intention. We're looking to service gym owners who want to run great community gyms with great workouts and great coaches. And in my estimation, that's probably most people out there who are running gyms. Most gyms out there, just call a spade, are not sending that many people to the games. I don't even know if the games really even exist anymore. I don't even know who's sending anybody anywhere, but they don't. So gym owners, I would ask you to check out what we do over here with what our programming coaching development looks like. But what Cory's talking about in terms of the workbook is, we also noticed that there was a gap in the education and the courses that were out there. And, the level 1 is a fantastic course. Jason and I taught on that staff for a long time. It is the best movement course that you could possibly offer any coach. Send your coaches to the CrossFit level 1, get them their level 1 certificate. Shortly after that, put them through Coach Like a Pro. Coach Like a Pro is the course that we run at NCFIT that actually teaches coaches how to do the job, how to show up at Monday for your 5 a.m. class when you don't have that much experience and you need to run a great class. Because if you're not that experienced, if you have coaches on the floor who aren't that experienced or who need to come up a little bit, your members are still paying the same money for that class as your most experienced coach. So it's on you as the owner to get this person up to speed as soon as possible. That's a huge liability if you have 3 or 4 members on your coaching team who have 1 or 2 months of experience, but then you have 6, 7 years of experience over here. There's a really big gap between those 2 people and the product on the floor that they offer. And what we're trying to do with Coach Like a Pro, which our next cohort, the first day of the next cohort is July 10th, Thursday, July 10th. So you have between now and July 10th to figure out whether or not you want to level up somebody on your team. It's a 5-week course in which we dive into everything in the art of coaching, everything. Jason and I are going to be there. We're going to be talking a lot about coaching development. We're going to be talking a lot about everything from preparation all the way to the end of class. Every question that you could possibly imagine gets asked and answered in that course. It's backed by 8 hours of video. We'll put all the details somewhere in the links. But this course is fantastic to immediately after 5 weeks level your coaches up. And Cory, you hinted at it already. We're really just going back and looking at a lot of the things that we've learned over the years and the mistakes that we've made and trying to shorten that learning curve. Because wouldn't you want to get somebody there in fewer mistakes than we all made back in the day? And that's the real reason behind Coach Like a Pro. We want everybody to level up, and this course does it.
I think too, the level 1, of course, is an incredible foundation.
Yes.
But it leaves you, really the benefit I think you get out of it is all of the prep work you do before the L1 and then how many things click during the L1. But then it's just like, what now? What do I do after? And what I love about the way you guys have formatted your Coach Like a Pro program is it's running for a couple weeks, which means I'm going to be able to take a little bit of knowledge, put it into play in class, reflect on that, and then do it again the next week. And so it's giving me the ability to actually put into play and reflect more consistently than just being like, okay, I just got an avalanche of information dumped on me. Now I need to try and figure out how I apply that in an actual class setting.
Well, I'll take it a step further. And so I agree with you 100% about the level one. I think, but look at it this way. I think this is a great question for any coach, any gym owner out there. When is the last time you've been peer reviewed? When's the last time you've been reviewed by anybody ever? When's the last time you've been given feedback that's structured, right? And most people, most of the time, have not received feedback in any shape or form from their coaching for many, many months, if not years. And so it's like, you don't know what you don't know. You think that you think you're killing it over here, but maybe you're actually not doing as well over there, and you're actually killing it somewhere else. You're actually doing really well somewhere else. And one of the things I think Coach Like a Pro does a really good job of is just puts a magnifying glass a little bit on your coaching skills and gives like some level of structure behind it. So that we, on week MDV, I think it's week 2 or week 3. Is it week 3? Week 3.
That they get their first observation. Yeah. After the third week is the first observation.
Yeah. So week 3 is the first observation. So by that time, you've had a couple of weeks under your belt with Coach Like a Pro. You're ready to go out there, and now you're having your class observed. And for a lot of people, that's nerve wracking. But when they have it done and they get that feedback, 2 weeks later, they do it again, and they just see this incredible adjustment and improvement in their coaching. And it's like, not only does that build your confidence, but it also builds your gym. So if you're a gym owner out there and you want to create a more profitable, successful location, we have to be providing these tools to our coaches. And so if you're not providing these to them, how can you expect them to have like a quantifiable data point that they could build off of? So again, you could join Coach Like a Pro. You could do this on your own. But the reality is we have to start kind of talking about the art of coaching in a way that's quantifiable. And I think that people observing other classes done right, and we talk about how to do it right in Coach Like a Pro, I think is really important in our industry, because I don't think it's been done enough. I wish that it would have been done more from the early beginnings.
So how does that work? So if I was in Coach Like a Pro, I get to week 3 for the evaluation stage. Let's say I'm the only one at my gym going through Coach Like a Pro. Do I then go and ask, maybe the owner or the head coach or a peer to do my evaluation? That's awesome.
Yeah. That's the way that we work it with the current structure of Coach Like a Pro, because those people know you well. We expect that the people around you know you as a coach fairly well. They know where you come from. They know your background. They know how you currently coach. And what we give to the coach who's taking the course is a set of very simple instructions about how they would guide someone to help them through this observation. So also, this is a great opportunity for gym owners out there. If you don't have a feedback and observation loop, we essentially provide one for you. We give you these tools that you can utilize over many months or many years after the course, so you can continue this coaching development. But essentially, we're asking the person who's observing to look at everything that happens from minute 0 to minute 60, to just observe the class. They are simply observing. And as they're observing, they're writing things down, things that they liked, things that they thought were a little bit curious, and things that they thought maybe could have been improved. And that's the way that we're looking at this. So we're saying that, yes, you are taking into consideration the fact that somebody who's observing you here might not have their entire game locked up. That doesn't really matter. They're giving you what they think their feedback is on the class compared to where you're at in your journey. And it just creates a two-way conversation now. So these two coaches can start to talk about the craft of coaching. And then it becomes something that goes deeper into the organization. This becomes a practice. And this is something that we are really big on at NCFIT, is that coaches and owners, they need to be talking about this stuff more regularly. It can't just be, hey, I come in and coach my class and I leave. There's no development that happens there, no feedback. At least with this system, this very, very simple system that we'll be able to give you through Coach Like a Pro, you have an observation form that sets a baseline. Now you have a standardized procedure in which you have an understanding of when a coach is coaching through an observation, what does that coach do to make it their best? And what does the person who's observing do to make the feedback opportunity the best for the person delivering the class? So I think it's a great system. I think that also within our industry, going more complex is not always the way to get the most out of your coaching development. These people have busy lives. For the most part, your coaches do not live in the gym. They have other things that go on outside in their life. So making something so overly complex or so burdensome usually becomes a point of stress for them. That we're also trying to greatly reduce coach stress and strain. with both the NCFIT programming and coaching development tools that you can get through Wodify for a monthly subscription. I don't have to sell that here. You guys can look at the links. That's our programming coaching development product. But then also through Coach Like a Pro. We want the coach stress to come down because Jason said it earlier. If you're constantly stressing or you're constantly thinking about what am I going to do next, you're never able to be your true self on the floor. And we all know that when a coach is being their true self and they're really bringing it, that's the best class possible.
So how would you triage with a coach? Like, let's say somebody does my evaluation and I'm like, man, I got a lot to work on, like most of us do. What would you say, let's say I have it all. Everything needs improvement. What's kind of like top priority?
Well, when everything needs improvement, the first thing that we have to do is we have to take a step back and we have to let's just slow down a little bit and let's identify like one or two things, first of all, that you did well. Let's talk about the things that you're doing pretty well here. And then we can get into, okay, well, what is the most critical thing that we need to look at here? And based on your level of experience, based on how many hours a week you coach, based on your personality, based on a whole lot of factors, then I would identify a simple focus for that coach. Like if that coach is not coaching a whole lot and they have a lot of stuff that is going haywire, I would just ask that coach to say, hey, really simply what I want you to do is use the lesson plan, use the things that we learned in Coach Like a Pro, and spend 15 to 20 minutes really dialing into what do I want my main focus to be in my warm-up, what's my main focus for my teaching, and what time does the workout need to start in order for the athletes to get this thing done. So we're just narrowing the focuses down a little bit to just like these broad stroke things that if that coach now focused on just those three things, the athletes undeniably would have a cleaner experience. They know what they're getting into for their warm-up. They understand what they're getting taught for the day based on the focus. And the workout gets done, hopefully with a little bit of adjustment for people as we're getting into the workout, obviously making sure the athletes have a great workout, but making sure that those three things happen. And like Jason said before, you can also distill this down into three very simple things that every coach needs to do every class. One, did the athletes have a good time? The athletes having a good time, checkbox one. Number two, did they learn something new? And number three, did they get a great workout? And if those three things are happening, we believe that that's the sign of a pretty good class. Could it be improved? For sure, but a pretty good class to start.
Well, and Reganne, I would, take it. I have one more thing on that. Like if your owner or the coach observing you says you have like 50,000 things, I also don't know if that delivery is going to be the best either, right? We need to, we have conversations on how to deliver feedback, how to receive feedback through Coach Like a Pro, because you also don't want to overwhelm people, right? You want to give them a little bit of a win. It's nerve wracking getting your class, observed. And so I think having some empathy there and understanding is also really important. But you know what? There's so many layers to coaching a phenomenal class, but it starts with just like being on time, right? You got to make sure your class is on time. Someone's committing to you for 60 minutes and that people are hitting those 3 points that MDV is talking about. From there, you start talking about, hey, did you give each person 3 touch points throughout that class, right? Did you give them some type of verbal, tactile, visual cue? Did you use their name appropriately? Did you do this? There's so many layers, right? But at the top of it is those 3 things, being on time. Okay, you got that check. Now, how do you keep going down the ladder until you get to the point where you're at like a very proficient level of running a class, which it never really ends. I mean, man, I've been coaching classes for 20 years and I still feel like there's room for where I'm at, I coached yesterday and I still feel like there's room.
I'm curious, guys. What benefits have you found with the cohort model as opposed to that, standard self-paced model with coaches? Have you seen, is that something, was it always cohort based? Did you guys migrate over to that model because you saw some extra benefits, and what have they been?
It's always been cohort based. We believe that there's a lot of knowledge that can be uncovered or learned through just the sharing of questions or asking questions in front of your peers or being accountable to your peers. So when you're sitting shoulder to shoulder with 30, 40, 50, 60 other people who are taking this cohort with you. We've graduated hundreds of coaches through this. This thing's been amazing for many, many, many gym owners. And the shared experiences are fantastic because if one coach is having the question, undeniably other coaches are probably thinking it. That kind of old adage definitely holds true. So yeah, as we go through these cohorts, are there a lot of the same questions that get asked across the entire industry? Of course. But then there's also the questions that make each cohort very, very, very unique to its own little group that goes through this. And then we have people who form bonds and they talk to one another and they exchange emails. And it becomes a really, really nice perpetuating system of not only coaching development, but relationships. So that's why we went with the cohort.
Yeah. And Cory, one other thing that, in coaching, sometimes you're on an island and, you might have 3 coaches at your organization. Owner maybe doesn't do as much for development. They have a full-time job as well. This is very common, by the way. Most gyms have either multiple owners or a single owner who also has another full-time job. And they're passionate about CrossFit and fitness and they love it. But, you go in, you do your job, you leave, and all of a sudden you have those members that come in who want to, have comp class while you're coaching. You have the member who always shows up late. You have the member that is disruptive. You have name the member, right? And all of a sudden you feel like you're in like this like island where you're like, dude, I got Larry who always shows up late. I don't know how to handle him. And then all of a sudden you're on Coach Like a Pro and someone else talks about Larry too. And you're like, dude, I feel you. And it creates this bond where you don't feel like you're on an island anymore, that someone else is on that same ecosystem. And that is really special because MDV and I could talk about it all we want, but when it's coming from a peer to peer and unsolicited, there's something about it that just makes people's shoulders drop and be like, oh, he hears me. You know what I'm saying? And then we can have a good conversation about how to overcome some of those challenges.
Everyone has a Larry.
Everybody's got a Larry. Everybody's got a Bob. It's very common, right?
I love that. It's so previously before joining Wodify, I was a coach myself, but not in a CrossFit sense. I was more of like traditional sort of like commercial gym, personal training manager, one-on-one, some small group stuff. But to be honest with you, I've witnessed exactly what you're talking about. I had a really high performing trainer and he was doing great. He had the most clients. He had the largest book. Everything was great. But I was really the only person he felt like he could recognize with. And I was doing like the managerial stuff. And he just was starved of camaraderie, of people who were on that same journey, who actually wanted to take their development very seriously. It was a totally different industry. This was a long time ago, but he joined a cohort-based sort of training program. And that ended up being his next career opportunity because he met a lot of like-minded coaches. He met a lot of people who were quite literally in the same point of the journey as he was. And now he's off doing different stuff with different people through all the connections that he made in that cohort model. So I've seen it firsthand with a close friend that, could have unintended consequences of just meeting those sorts of people too.
Yeah. And it's one of those things that it's certainly an investment to take courses or to go out there and continue your education. And it really is worth it to do so. And if you're going to take any course, I think the course that we offer is really profound insofar that like it makes you better at what you're going to go do tomorrow, what you're going to go do for the next X number of weeks or months or years or however long that you're going to be in this coaching cycle. It automatically is going to, not automatically, you're going to have to do the work, but it's going to make you better at what you do. I think a lot of courses out there, Reganne, you brought this up a little bit with the level 1. You take the level 1 and then you close the book and then you don't really revisit those things at all. Not only are you going to keep all the tools that we give you from Coach Like a Pro, the entire workbook, all the coaching development tools, the class planning documents, the self-evaluation documents, the goals documents, all these things that you can utilize across your own career. But then you can also take these things and impart them upon your staff or the people around you and then create your own little development system that keeps the ball rolling for many, many months and years to come. I think it's although it's an investment, like everybody will look at this and say like, yeah, I want to invest in my coaching. What's a good place to go do it? I think the NCFIT Coach Like a Pro is a fantastic place to start. And then the benefits beyond the end of the course are huge, 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 huge.
Yeah. I think a great place to start for a gym owner is if they haven't surveyed their members in a while, I'd be really curious to see if they surveyed their members and they ask questions in regards to the art of coaching, how feedback would be from them. And I'm proud to say that when we survey our members, like we get excellent scores across our coaching. There's always ways to improve a business, always. But if the product on the floor isn't great, it just creates this revolving door process where you as an owner work so hard to get a new member into the door, work so hard. But then they go in and they go right back out again because they don't have a phenomenal experience, especially when you're charging a premium. You need to provide a premium experience. And so I'd ask any owner, I'd ask any coach, what are you doing that's in your control to make sure your product on the floor is at its highest capability? And if you haven't done any type of development in many months, many years, well, how can you expect that to be the highest level? You haven't done anything for it for many, many years or months. And I think we're providing a solution to that problem.
I'm so curious about this member survey. Do you have a set of questions you generally ask, or is this more of an open?
I mean, we just got one back. MDV, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, we have not a standard list of questions, but we have questions that we certainly have asked over the years. We've done this many times over the years with our different gyms and the different structures that we've kind of operated under. And like Jason said, we just put out a member survey and we got a tremendous response back, which was great. But we generally have certain questions that we want to ask about the overall member experience, about their overall happiness, about the coaching, about the cleanliness, about the class times, about reservations, all these things. So we're looking at the business from a member's perspective and asking, okay, where could they possibly have questions, or where could they possibly think that we could improve? And then we ask that question. And, one of the things that we do at NCFIT, which helps us get a bit more responses, is that we'll attach like a pair of like nano footwear or Metcons or something, give a prize to the members to fill this thing out. I think that that's something that, a lot of people get a lot of emails in their inbox and they don't always open them. But if you're talking about this during class and you're saying like, hey, you have the opportunity to win, whether it's this or a personal training session or whatever, I think the members will be pretty apt to fill out that survey for you.
We did a couple of Yeti tumblers this time around, and that worked really well.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, you could even give away fit aids, store credit, all kinds of things. I love that. I think it's a great idea to do that member survey, even though it might be a little bit scary to ask people those questions and hear what they have to say, but then have the tools to actually make a change afterwards. So if members say that like, well, I'm not getting a super consistent experience, or this class is a little less fun than this class, but they don't really know why, being able to rerun that survey 6 months, a year later to see, has coach development made an impact? And we have, without a doubt.
Yeah. Well, and I think it allows you to give you a justification to make changes as well, right? So let's just say you put out a survey and you're asking all these questions, right? Like the variety of them. You attach a potential prize to it, and you ask about coaching, you ask about times, you ask about this, you ask about that. Well, when you go to make those changes, it's like, hey, you spoke, we listened. And so it gives you like this really nice validity for the members, and it allows you to back up your decision-making process because you just asked their feedback from a high level. So if someone to say, hey, why did you remove the 6 a.m.? Well, it's like, hey, we received feedback that people wanted at 8 a.m. or whatever it might be. And so it's just a nice business tool to lean on. So it's not so subjective, and you're actually getting feedback from your members about these different things.
I have a question for you guys about, in my capacity here at Wodify, as I mentioned, I deal with a lot of new customers or new gym owners or people just getting started. And I imagine this is kind of an overlap of an archetype that would probably benefit from your program as well. And that's, most fitness professionals start off in some sort of personal training environment. That's usually like how they kind of dip their toe into the industry. And then at some point they have to scale. They just don't want to keep trading, time for money, being like, well, I could training one person at a time when I can bring in more people, and maybe I charge a little bit less instead of hourly, but now I could have this monthly recurring membership, and it just offers a little bit more stability. But I'd almost compare it to like boxing and MMA. They've done personal training for a while, so they think that they're well prepared for, teaching that class. But
that's a really good analogy.
It seems like it would work, right? But it just doesn't quite work. What are some of the biggest deficiencies or holes that gaps that need to be filled for those personal trainers looking to make the jump to more class-based programs?
That's a really good analogy. I like that. Yeah, because as you know, right, it's a big difference. I'm actually going to see Daniel Cormier today. That's where and
awesome.
You talk about someone who has just because you're a boxer doesn't mean you're not going to get taken down and get your ass kicked, right?
Right.
But anyways, back to your note. I think that if you're coming from a personal training background, you then have small group classes. There's other options, and I think it depends on the individual what they're interested in doing. But it's a completely different art form, right? When you're one-on-one, you're very specific. You're maybe even talking about lifestyle stuff as you're having a conversation. You're talking about their family. You're connecting with them on a one-on-one basis. You're their resource inside and out to help improve their overall lifestyle, right? And you're talking about a lot of things, I imagine. But that level of connection is very close. When you're running a class, you want some of that, of course, because you want people to feel that connection to the individual, but you also want it to be an overall energy and class experience. So people who go in for a class, they're typically interested in an energy. And it's your job as the coach to create the energy, create the atmosphere, and of course, do your job of coaching a class. Whereas one-on-one, I think they're less interested in the energy and they're more interested in that personal connection and ultimately what what they're getting delivered, which is, these promise of the results. If you come in and do this. So I think that's the difference, is that what we teach at Coaching a Pro is like, how do you run a class? And running a class is much different than running a one-on-one session. How are you going to manage your timeline? How are you going to get around the group? How are you going to bring people into the board and create an energy? How are you going to go around and get people's names down? Like, those are problems that you don't have one-on-one. And one-on-one requires a lot of different skill sets as well. So that's what we kind of bridge the gap on. If the guy was interested in one-on-one, well, you can't just jump into MMA, right? You have to have someone teach you how to do that groundwork.
Right. Just because you're a great MMA fighter doesn't mean you won't get knocked out by a YouTuber when you cross over to a boxing match.
Yeah, sure. Right. There you go.
I don't know what the training equivalent is there. I can't come up with that one on the fly. But the other sort of thing I had for you guys on that is, what are some of the key things? Like, if I just dropped you into a gym and, beyond, obviously there's a scorecard and that sort of thing, but like, what are some immediate indicators that you notice, like, this guy's, because you talk in the workbook about crossing that threshold from amateur to pro, even without the metric and the scorecard, if I just dropped you guys in there and just you fly in the wall, like, what are some key behaviors you'd notice to be like, man, this guy's a pro, they've crossed that line?
Within seconds of walking into the gym, I know who's in charge. I know who's running the class. If I walk into a gym in an active class environment, I should know within seconds who's running that class. And I should be able to figure out whether or not they have a stranglehold on that class, like they know exactly what they're doing, or it's a shit show. I'll know within seconds. It's like undeniable. You can just walk into a room and you can just see this is going haywire, and I have no idea who's in charge, and the members are everywhere. The equipment's all over the place. The music is too loud. You have no group control. The class is it's supposed to start at 6 o'clock a.m. It's already 6:15. Everybody's still walking around. Like, in that environment, I know that there's some work that we need to do for sure. If I walk into the class and the coach is lowering the music as they're starting to make an announcement, and they pull everybody in, they have everybody at the whiteboard and they're clearly talking through something, and then they break everybody out and they tell everybody to go grab a barbell, set up in 2 rows. That's a completely different experience right off the bat. Within seconds, you can tell. Within seconds. And I think, unfortunately, you walk into some gyms and you feel like, wow, who the heck is in charge right now? And as a member, only imagine if you're a member in that class or somebody who's newer to this kind of stuff, how scary that might be, is to not know what's coming next, or to not know who's in charge, or not know anything. So that's a big indicator for me.
Yeah, it's
I
scary.
actually have a funny story. New into CrossFit, was dropping in at a gym in a new state, and it was so unclear who the coach was for class. I actually had a member pretend to be the coach, give me the runaround for like 10 minutes, and then go, "I'm just kidding, I'm not the coach." And I was just like, what?
That's weird, right?
That's pretty strange.
So
That's
weird.
pretty strange.
Well, and think about it.
The actual coach had no idea, which is like, what a strange initial experience for somebody who might be scared or intimidated to come into your gym and not know immediately like who to talk to, who to interact with.
And starting back in 2009, I started teaching seminars for CrossFit. And because I was competing professionally, also, I traveled the world and I went into thousands of gyms. I mean, at least 1,000 gyms I went into. And I learned so much about that initial experience. Right when you walk in, it's like, I've been in gyms before where you walk in and there's class times and no one was, I don't even know what happened. I just worked out and I left and no one even knew I was there. Right. I mean, I've been in experiences where literally coach like, all right, class starts. And then he literally went into his office and was on Instagram the whole time. And the class was just like doing this thing. I mean, we've seen so many different gaps, and that's why we're trying to bridge that gap, right? We're trying to get to the point where, especially in large classes, and you experienced this at Two Brain. At Two Brain, you took a class that I was the lead on. I hope that for the entire time you knew exactly what you needed to do and how to do it. And that's the expectation, right? That should be the norm. Like, your minimal dose, like the minimal requirement of your job is to ensure that people are moving safely and that they know exactly what they should be doing at that given time. If you can't do that, you're not performing your job scope and you're not turning pro, right? Like, that's not a professional. That's like a amateur mindset. And what we're trying to teach is every coach, every opportunity. I don't care if you're a doctor or if you're a full-time coach, you should be performing at the highest level of a professional coach because your members deserve it and you deserve it for yourself.
Yeah, that was something that stood out a lot when Matt was telling me about Coach Like a Pro, is how much you guys are leaning into those soft skills, how much you're leaning into the experiential side for members during class. The expectation is, the foundational movements, they're on the internet. You can look them up, memorize them, lock them down so that you can focus on the things that people are going to be able to feel during class. What does class feel like? Did I have a good time? Did I feel like I was successful? While still holding people, of course, good movement and good movement standards, but they need to not really know that all of that's going on in your head. There's so much else that you need to do to create like a really awesome experience.
Yeah, we recently had Chris Cooper on, and people go listen to the interview to hear exactly what he said. I don't want to put words in Chris's mouth, but we asked a question to him, and I'm now posed it to you guys as well, because I think it's interesting for me to see a cohesive narrative forming here, because I think reading through the workbook, it seems like you guys are really going to agree with him here. But the question we posed to him was essentially, information isn't worth what it used to be. In a world where you could Google this and that, and you can now chat GPT things, and is that information as good as from an experienced coach? No, but it's going to continue to get better. And the question we posed to Chris was like, are we already at the point where the real offering of a fitness business is no longer the information, but it is those soft skills? It's the ability to be a part of a community, to have access to someone who's a motivator and a leader and someone who can guide you in the right direction. It's not so much the information anymore. It's actually having that sort of Sherpa to take you through how to actually execute on that information. Do you guys also think we're at that point? Chris seemed to think we are. Would you guys agree?
It's always been that way. It's just glaringly obvious now. It's always been that way. It's never been that way. It's never been different than that. That's the way that it's always been. The best coaches are the people that make the people feel the best. They come back for more of that coach, more of that experience. Everybody's got this mostly the same knowledge. We're all operating off of the same playbook, especially if you drill this down to the CrossFit community. You're looking at a distilled level of knowledge from the level one. And, I think most people understand it. Most people can recite the points of performance. Most people know what the 9 foundational movements are. Most people know what defaults are. The information has never been the issue. It's the application of the information. And now it's just obvious. Now it's very obvious that you can go out there and figure this out very quickly with a keystroke on ChatGPT, but it's still always the commodity is going to be talent and highly trained talent. And the people out there who are really able to do this at a high level, those people are worth their weight in gold, always have been and always will be. And we're trying to produce more pro coaches, more coaches who can step out on the floor and you can look at that and go, wow, I'm paying $200 a month and that was worth it. I would pay even more for this experience because it was worth it. And that's the thing that we're trying to really get across here.
Love it. Love it. Well, guys, I know you got to get out of here. We'll leave you on one very short question to finalize here, because Jason's got an appointment with DC. I'm very jealous, by the way. I'm a huge MMA fan, and DC is one of the GOATs, man. So that's awesome. Let's get a hot take from you guys. Let's give me a fitness. It could be CrossFit related, could be fitness industry related, as broad or as specific as you want it to be. But what's kind of a hill you guys will die on that maybe is not a popular hill? Maybe you're alone on that hill, or a hot take of the fitness industry. What's kind of stewing in your guys' brain?
I mean, I think that, one of these things that maybe is a little bit different these days, but a few years ago was a little bit more kind of glaringly obvious, was that your members are not a reflection of your own fitness goals. Mm-hmm. Your members are a reflection of their fitness goals. So if you have aspirations to be the best Olympic lifter in the world, or if you have aspirations to go to the games, or if you have aspirations to win whatever, your members don't share those same aspirations. Maybe you rub off on them a little bit, but I think we used to see this quite a bit. And, somebody would be training really hard to go to the games and they'd be doing a lot of complex high level movements. And then they try to get their athletes to do those during class. And it's just I don't think fitness needs to be that way. Fitness doesn't always need to be a contest. I do think that maybe we've taken the scoring thing with fitness a little bit too far, and there can be some workouts in which you don't need to necessarily worry about how many reps or how fast you've done the workout in. And one of the things we do with NCFIT programming is 90% of the workouts that we're putting out there, they do have a CrossFit like score attached to it. we recognize that this is an essential element of creating not only intensity, but also creating a way that the athletes can memorialize their progress and look to see if they've gotten better over time. We get it. We also have a workout in there every week that doesn't have a score. We want athletes to be able to chill a little bit and just feel the movements and do something for quality. So it's a little bit of a change up to, I think, some of what you see out there, but we really enjoy it.
I love that. Starting in my fitness, life in CrossFit, I started CrossFit when I was like 12. That's all I ever did for fitness. Learning to not score a workout and not push to the brink of where I felt like I was dying every time was such a hard thing to learn. I really did have
Very
to learn
hard.
it. So important, though, I think, for longevity and being able to, work out and be fit for the rest of your life. Guys, Jason, I know you got to go. Thank you so much for coming on today. I want to just give a couple more points of information about Coach Like a Pro. Next cohort is starting July 10th.
Yep.
You can get 12 CEUs.
Yep.
If you're a CrossFit L3, right? That's when you're working for CEUs. And guys, sign up. What are you waiting for? You've been waiting for a chance to get better, develop your coaching. You need specific, actionable feedback in order to improve. And I'm really excited that you guys are doing this course. And I think it's something a lot of coaches can benefit from.
Thank you very much.
Heck yeah. Thank you for having us. And to all the gym owners out there, look, if you guys aren't where you want to be, let us help you get there. If your coaches aren't where you think they could be, or you don't even know what the possibilities are, let us help you get there, right? We've done it with thousands of at this point, coaches, and we're here to help.
Love it.
Love it.
Guys.
Thanks for being here, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.